The old woman's family put her in a nursing home and stopped visiting her, so she decides to teach them an important lesson that they will remember forever. Before we get started, comment where in the world you are watching from. Margaret Lawson, a 78-year-old retired schoolteacher, sat in her favorite wicker chair on the sun-drenched patio. Her silver hair was pulled back neatly, and her eyes sparkled with curiosity as she watched the world go by. Despite her years, Margaret exuded a vibrant energy that drew people to her. She had a warm smile for everyone and a knack for making even the most mundane stories come alive. "Morning, Margaret," called out Harold, a fellow resident and former engineer, as he wheeled his chair over to join her. "How are you doing today?" "Oh, I'm just fine, Harold," Margaret replied, her voice carrying the gentle lilt of someone who had spent decades nurturing young minds. "Did you see those new roses they planted near the entrance? Absolutely stunning." Harold nodded, looking out at the garden. "I did. They really brighten up the place, don't they? Makes you appreciate how lucky we are to live here." "Indeed," Margaret agreed, glancing around at the bustling activity of the morning. Residents moved about, some engaged in animated conversations, others quietly enjoying the tranquility of the garden. A group of them had gathered under the large oak tree, setting up a game of chess on a weathered wooden table. As Margaret chatted with Harold, Evelyn Harper, one of the caregivers, approached them. Evelyn was a kind-hearted woman in her mid-30s, with a natural ability to connect with the residents. Her gentle demeanor and genuine interest in their well-being made her a favorite among those who lived at Rosewood. "Good morning, Evelyn," Margaret greeted her warmly. "Good morning, Margaret," Harold, Evelyn replied, her smile lighting up her face. "How are you both doing today?" "We're doing quite well," Harold replied. Margaret was just admiring the new roses. "Have you seen them?" Evelyn nodded enthusiastically. "I have. They're beautiful, aren't they?" "I think they've really outdone themselves this time." Margaret chuckled. "It's those little things that make a big difference. Just like you, Evelyn. You're always bringing a bit of sunshine wherever you go." Evelyn blushed at the compliment. "Thank you, Margaret. That means a lot coming from you." Margaret had always appreciated Evelyn's dedication and compassion. She saw in Evelyn a younger version of herself, someone who genuinely cared about the people around her and went out of her way to make a difference. As the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the garden, Margaret felt a sense of contentment. Her life at Rosewood was filled with moments of joy and companionship, even as she occasionally reflected on the absence of her family. But here she was surrounded by people who valued her presence, and that was enough for now. Margaret watched as Evelyn moved on to check on other residents, her presence a comforting constant in their lives. The community of Rosewood, with its vibrant tapestry of people and stories, had become Margaret's home, a place where she could live out her days in peace and contentment. With a sigh of satisfaction, Margaret turned back to Harold, eager to continue their conversation and savor the beauty of another day at Rosewood Retirement Home. The sun rose high over Rosewood Retirement Home, casting a warm glow over the gardens as Margaret Lawson made her way to the dining hall for breakfast. The morning air was crisp, and Margaret relished the quiet moments she spent in the garden, watching the dew glisten on the petals of her favorite roses. She entered the dining hall, where residents gathered to share meals and stories, creating a lively buzz of conversation. As Margaret found her usual spot at a round table by the window, she noticed Evelyn Harper approaching with her usual cheerful demeanor. Evelyn carried a tray laden with Margaret's breakfast: oatmeal with a sprinkle of cinnamon, fresh fruit, and a steaming cup of tea. "Good morning, Margaret," Evelyn greeted, placing the tray in front of her. "Good morning, Evelyn," Margaret replied, smiling warmly. "You always know just how to start my day right." "It's all part of the job," Evelyn said with a wink. "Besides, I enjoy our morning chats. How are you feeling today?" "Oh, I'm doing well, dear," Margaret said, stirring her oatmeal. "You know, I've been thinking about the old schoolhouse where I taught. There's something about this place that reminds me of it." Evelyn sat down across from Margaret, genuinely interested. "Really? What is it about Rosewood that takes you back there?" "It's the sense of community, I suppose," Margaret said, looking around the bustling room. "Everyone here has their own story, just like my students did. I always loved learning about them and helping them grow." Evelyn listened intently, appreciating the glimpse into Margaret's past. You must have been a wonderful teacher, Margaret. I bet your students adored you. Margaret chuckled softly, recalling fond memories. Well, I did my best to inspire them, to show them the world beyond the textbooks. Teaching wasn't just a job for me. It was a calling. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, moving from memories of Margaret's teaching days to discussions about the current events and the latest happenings in the world. Evelyn's ability to engage with the residents and her genuine interest in their lives had always set her apart. With Margaret, she found a connection that felt deeper than the usual caregiver-patient relationship. One afternoon, while the residents were gathered in the garden for a community event, Margaret and Evelyn found themselves sitting side by side on a bench under the shade of the great oak tree. The garden was alive with laughter and chatter as a group of residents played cards at a nearby table. "Do you ever miss teaching, Margaret?" Evelyn asked, her curiosity piqued. "Oh, every day," Margaret admitted, her eyes reflecting a mix of nostalgia and longing. "I miss the kids, their energy, and the way they'd light up when they learned something new. It was such a joy to be part of their journey." "I can imagine," Evelyn said softly. "You've touched so many lives, Margaret. Even now you continue to inspire those around you." Margaret looked at Evelyn, sensing the sincerity in her words. "Thank you, Evelyn. That means a lot coming from you. You have a gift, you know. You make everyone here feel valued and cared for." Evelyn smiled, feeling a deep sense of appreciation for Margaret's words. "I just try to be there for people, the way I wish someone had been there for me when I was younger." The two women shared a quiet moment, their bond growing stronger with each conversation. Margaret saw in Evelyn a kindred spirit, someone who understood the importance of kindness and empathy in a world that often seemed indifferent. As the afternoon sun began to set, casting golden hues across the garden, Margaret felt a warmth in her heart. Her friendship with Evelyn had become a cherished part of her life at Rosewood, filling the void left by her family's absence. In Evelyn, Margaret found a confidant, someone who shared her values and understood her journey. Their friendship continued to blossom, like the roses in the garden, beautiful, resilient, and ever-growing. And in each other, they found solace and strength, knowing that the bonds they formed at Rosewood were as meaningful as any family ties. The sky outside Rosewood Retirement Home was overcast, and a gentle rain tapped against the windows, creating a soothing rhythm that filled the air. Inside, Margaret Lawson sat in the cozy living room, a place filled with plush armchairs and bookshelves crammed with well-thumbed novels and knickknacks from the residents' past. It was a room where stories were shared and connections were forged, making it one of Margaret's favorite spots. Margaret was lost in thought, her fingers idly tracing the floral pattern of her teacup. Her decision had been weighing on her mind for some time, and she knew she needed to discuss it with Evelyn Harper, the person she trusted most at Rosewood. Margaret's family had not visited in months, their lives seemingly too busy to include her, and she had come to terms with this reality. Yet she yearned for her legacy to be more than forgotten letters in a drawer. Evelyn entered the room, a bundle of letters in her hand, her face lighting up as she saw Margaret. "There you are, Margaret. I was hoping I'd find you here," she said, sitting down beside her. "Looks like the mail came through. Anything interesting?" Margaret smiled at Evelyn's cheerful presence. "Oh, just the usual," she replied, glancing at the letters. "Mostly bills and advertisements, but I appreciate you bringing them." Evelyn set the letters aside and looked at Margaret with genuine curiosity. "You seem a little quieter than usual today. Is everything all right?" Margaret hesitated for a moment, then decided to share what had been on her mind. "Evelyn, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about the future and what I want to leave behind." Evelyn listened intently, sensing the gravity of Margaret's words. "Go on," she encouraged softly. "You know I don't have much contact with my family anymore," Margaret continued, her voice tinged with both sadness and resolve. "And I've come to accept that. But I want to do something meaningful with what I have left, something that reflects the values I've lived by." Margaret paused, collecting her thoughts before continuing. "I've decided to leave my inheritance to you, Evelyn. I know it might come as a surprise, but I trust you to use it wisely, to help others as you've helped me." Evelyn was taken aback, her eyes widening in surprise. "Margaret, I don't know what to say. This is incredibly generous, but are you sure? Your family? My family has made their choices, Margaret interrupted, gently but firmly, and I've made mine. You're like family to me, Evelyn. You've given me companionship and kindness when I needed it most. I want you to have the resources to continue helping others, to carry on the legacy of kindness that we both believe in. Evelyn sat in stunned silence for a moment, overwhelmed by Margaret's decision. Her heart was full of gratitude and a sense of responsibility. I'm honored, Margaret. Truly, I promise to use it in a way that would make you proud, she said, her voice filled with emotion. Margaret reached across and took Evelyn's hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. I know you will. You have a good heart, and I trust you completely. The rain outside had eased, leaving a fresh scent in the air as it mingled with the smell of the garden. Margaret and Evelyn sat together in the living room, their bond stronger than ever, each feeling the weight of the moment and the promise it held for the future. As the day drew to a close, Margaret felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew she had made the right decision, one that honored her values and the deep friendship she shared with Evelyn. The legacy she envisioned was one built on compassion and empathy, a legacy she knew Evelyn would carry forward with grace and dedication. Their conversation marked a new chapter in both their lives, a testament to the power of human connection and the enduring impact of kindness. And as the evening light faded, Margaret felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing her decision would make a difference in ways she had always dreamed of. The weather was sunny and brisk on the morning that Margaret's children, Thomas and Anna, arrived at Rosewood Retirement Home. The driveway buzzed with the sound of their approaching car, a sleek black sedan that glinted in the morning light as it came to a stop near the entrance. Inside, Margaret sat at her favorite spot by the window in the common room, sipping her tea and watching the world outside. She knew this day would come eventually, and she was ready to face it with the same resolve that had guided her life. The siblings entered the building, their footsteps echoing in the hallway as they approached the reception area. Thomas, the elder of the two, was a tall man in his 40s, his demeanor confident but tinged with impatience. Anna, his younger sister, was quieter, her expression a mix of anxiety and determination. They had not seen their mother in months, their visits having grown less frequent as their lives became increasingly consumed by work and family obligations. Margaret looked up as they entered the common room, setting down her teacup with a slight smile. "Thomas, Anna," she greeted, her voice calm and welcoming. "It's good to see you both." "Mother," Thomas said, his tone cordial but brisk. "We need to talk." Anna nodded, taking a seat beside Margaret, her eyes searching her mother's face for signs of change. "We heard about your decision from the lawyer," she said, her voice softer than her brother's, but carrying the same undercurrent of concern. Margaret nodded, meeting their gaze with a steady calm. "I thought you might come by," she said, gesturing for them to sit. "Let's discuss this over tea, shall we?" The siblings exchanged a glance, then settled into chairs across from Margaret. The room was filled with the gentle hum of conversations from other residents, a backdrop of life that continued around them. "Mother, why?" Thomas asked, leaning forward with his hands clasped together. "Why would you leave your inheritance to a caregiver instead of your own children?" Margaret held his gaze, her expression composed. "Because I believe Evelyn will use it in a way that reflects my values and wishes. It's not about choosing her over you. It's about choosing what I want my legacy to be." Anna's eyes softened, but her voice was strained with emotion. "But we're your family, Mom. We've always been there for you." Margaret nodded, her eyes holding a gentle understanding. "I know, dear, and I love you both very much, but I've seen how your lives have become so full, and I don't want my decision to be a burden or a source of contention between you." Thomas's frustration bubbled to the surface. "It's not about that. It's about what's fair, what's right. We're your children. We should have some say in this." Margaret sighed, reaching for her teacup as she gathered her thoughts. "Thomas, life isn't always about fairness. It's about making choices that feel right in your heart. I found a sense of peace here at Rosewood, and Evelyn has been a part of that. She's given me companionship and care that has meant the world to me." Anna looked at her mother, her expression softening. "You really care about her, don't you?" "I do," Margaret replied, her voice firm yet gentle. And I trust her to carry on the kindness and compassion I've tried to live by. The siblings sat in silence for a moment, digesting their mother's words. Anna reached out, placing a hand on Margaret's arm. We're just worried about you, that's all. Margaret patted Anna's hand reassuringly. I know, sweetheart, and I appreciate it, but this is my choice, and I ask you to respect it. Thomas leaned back in his chair, the tension in his posture easing slightly. We may not agree, but we understand. We just want you to be happy, Mom. Margaret smiled, her heart warming at their words. Thank you, both of you. That's all I've ever wanted. Their conversation continued, a blend of emotions and understanding gradually weaving a bridge between them. Though the decision remained unchanged, Margaret felt a sense of relief, knowing she had spoken her truth and been heard. Her relationship with her children might be complex, but the love between them endured, as resilient as the garden blooms outside. As the visit came to an end, and Thomas and Anna prepared to leave, Margaret embraced them both, feeling the bond that connected them despite their differences. She watched from the window as their car pulled away, feeling a sense of closure and hope for the future. In the quiet aftermath, Margaret returned to her chair, her thoughts turning to Evelyn and the promise of a legacy built on kindness. She knew the road ahead would not be without its challenges, but she felt a renewed strength in her decision, bolstered by the understanding that, in the end, her life's work would be carried forward by someone who truly cared. The sky was darkening over Rosewood Retirement Home, a storm brewing on the horizon as rain began to fall in steady sheets against the windows. Inside, the residents gathered in the common room, seeking warmth and companionship as the weather outside turned tumultuous. The air was filled with the scent of freshly brewed coffee, and soft music played in the background, creating an atmosphere of cozy refuge from the storm. Margaret Lawson sat in her favorite chair near the fireplace, a book open in her lap. Her mind was far from the pages, though, as she reflected on her recent conversation with her children. Despite the peace she felt in her decision, a lingering unease settled in her heart, stirred by their reactions and the reality of what lay ahead. Evelyn Harper approached with a gentle smile, a tray of cookies in her hands. Would you like one, Margaret? She asked, offering the tray. Margaret looked up, grateful for the distraction. Thank you, Evelyn. They look delicious, she replied, taking a cookie and savoring its warmth and sweetness. Evelyn settled into the chair next to Margaret, sensing her friend's preoccupation. You seem a bit pensive today. Is everything all right? Margaret sighed, setting the book aside. I had a visit from my children yesterday. We talked about the decision I made, and while they said they understood, I can't help but feel a bit unsettled. Evelyn nodded, understanding the weight of Margaret's words. It's not easy, is it? Balancing what you feel is right with the expectations of others. No, it's not, Margaret agreed, her voice thoughtful. But I know in my heart this is the path I want to take. I just wish there wasn't so much turmoil involved. Evelyn reached out, placing a comforting hand on Margaret's arm. You've shown incredible courage, Margaret. It takes strength to stand by your convictions, especially when it affects those you love. Margaret appreciated Evelyn's support, drawing comfort from her presence. Thank you, Evelyn. Your friendship means more to me than I can say. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden clap of thunder, the lights flickering momentarily before settling into a steady glow. The storm outside raged on, a reminder of the unpredictable nature of life and the challenges it brought. In the midst of the storm, Margaret found herself thinking about the people who had touched her life at Rosewood. Each of them carried their own stories, their own struggles and triumphs, and she felt a deep sense of connection to the community she had found here. As the evening wore on, the common room filled with the comforting sound of conversation and laughter. Residents shared stories and jokes, their voices mingling with the music and the gentle patter of rain on the windows. Margaret watched as Evelyn moved about the room, engaging with each resident, her presence a beacon of warmth and kindness. Evelyn's ability to bring people together and create a sense of belonging was a testament to her character, and Margaret felt grateful to have her in her life. When Evelyn returned to Margaret's side, she carried a sense of tranquility that seemed to permeate the room. It's moments like these, Evelyn said, glancing around at the gathered residents, that remind me why I love what I do. helping others find joy and connection, even on the stormiest days. Margaret smiled, feeling the truth in Evelyn's words. You have a gift, Evelyn. You bring out the best in people, and I'm honored to have you as a friend. Their conversation continued, weaving a tapestry of shared hopes and dreams. Despite the storm raging outside, Margaret felt a renewed sense of peace and purpose, knowing she had made the right decision and that her legacy would live on in the kindness she had shared with others. As the night deepened, the storm began to subside, leaving behind a world refreshed and renewed. Margaret retired to her room, the sound of rain lulling her to sleep, her heart full of gratitude and hope for the future. In the quiet aftermath of the storm, Margaret found solace in the knowledge that her life's work would continue through Evelyn and the community she cherished. Her decision, born of love and conviction, was a testament to the enduring power of compassion and the impact it could have on the world around her. The days following Margaret's decision were marked by a subtle shift in the atmosphere at Rosewood Retirement Home. The storm had passed, but whispers of her decision had begun to circulate among the residents and staff, casting ripples through the community. Margaret had anticipated some reactions, but she was unprepared for the growing buzz that seemed to follow her through the hallways and common rooms. She found herself the subject of many conversations, some supportive, others curious, and a few critical. One afternoon, as Margaret sat in the garden enjoying a rare moment of sunshine, she overheard a conversation between two residents seated nearby. "Did you hear about Margaret?" one woman whispered to her companion. "I can't believe she's leaving everything to that young caregiver." "I heard," the other replied, her voice low but insistent. "It's quite the scandal. I'm not sure what her family thinks of it." Margaret sighed inwardly, her heart heavy with the weight of judgment and misunderstanding. She had expected this kind of response, but it didn't make it any easier to bear. Evelyn, who had been tending to the flowers nearby, noticed Margaret's troubled expression and joined her on the bench. "How are you holding up?" Evelyn asked, her tone gentle and supportive. Margaret smiled faintly, grateful for Evelyn's presence. "I'm all right, just a bit weary of the rumors," she admitted. "I knew there'd be talk, but it's harder to ignore than I thought." Evelyn nodded, understanding the challenge Margaret faced. "It's human nature to be curious, especially about something as significant as your decision. But remember, Margaret, you made your choice for a reason. Don't let others' opinions cloud your heart." Margaret appreciated Evelyn's reassurance, feeling a renewed sense of resolve. "You're right, Evelyn. I have to stay true to myself, regardless of what others might think." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Agnes, one of the more outspoken residents, who approached with a determined stride. "Margaret, I've been looking for you," Agnes said, her voice carrying a hint of urgency. Margaret met Agnes's gaze, preparing herself for another round of questions. "Hello, Agnes. What can I do for you?" Agnes sat down beside Margaret, her expression earnest. "I've been hearing all sorts of things about your decision. I just wanted to tell you that I think it's incredibly brave." Margaret was taken aback, expecting skepticism rather than support. "Thank you, Agnes. That means a lot to me," she replied, her voice filled with gratitude. Agnes nodded, her eyes bright with conviction. "You're doing what you feel is right, and that takes courage. I admire that." Evelyn smiled, joining in the conversation. "Margaret's legacy is one of kindness and compassion, and I think that's something we can all learn from." The three women continued to talk, their conversation weaving a tapestry of understanding and mutual respect. As they shared stories and experiences, Margaret felt the burden of judgment lift, replaced by the warmth of camaraderie. Later that evening, as Margaret prepared for bed, she reflected on the day's events. The support she had received from Agnes and Evelyn had strengthened her resolve, reminding her of the importance of staying true to her values, even in the face of adversity. Margaret knew that the path she had chosen was not without its challenges, but she felt a deep sense of peace in the knowledge that her decision would make a difference in the lives of those she cared about. Her legacy was not just a matter of money or inheritance, it was a testament to the power of compassion and the impact it could have on the world around her. As she drifted off to sleep, the whispers of the day faded into the background, leaving only the gentle rhythm of her heartbeat and the promise of a new dawn. Margaret's journey was far from over, but she faced the future with resilience and hope, knowing that her legacy would endure in the hearts of those who understood its true meaning. The morning after the storm was clear and bright, with the sun casting a golden hue over the gardens of Rosewood Retirement Home. The fresh, crisp air felt invigorating as residents emerged from their rooms, eager to enjoy the calm after the tempest. Margaret Lawson, still reflecting on the previous day's events, took a slow walk through the garden, savoring the peace and tranquility that the clear sky provided. As she wandered among the blooming flowers, Margaret spotted Evelyn Harper working diligently, tending to the garden beds with care. Evelyn's hands moved gracefully, planting new seeds and pruning the existing plants. Her focus was intense, yet there was a serene quality to her work, a reflection of her deep commitment to making Rosewood a beautiful place for everyone. Margaret approached Evelyn, her footsteps soft on the gravel path. "Good morning, Evelyn," she greeted, her voice warm and genuine. Evelyn looked up from her work, her face lighting up with a smile. "Good morning, Margaret. How are you today?" "I'm doing well, thank you," Margaret replied. "I've been thinking about how much you do for everyone here. I see it in the little things, like how you care for this garden." Evelyn paused, her hands resting on the trowel. "It's one of the things I enjoy most. There's something special about nurturing plants and watching them grow. It's a bit like caring for people, in a way." Margaret nodded, understanding the analogy. "I've noticed how your efforts go beyond the call of duty. You give so much of yourself to make this place a better home for all of us." Evelyn's expression softened, touched by Margaret's recognition. "Thank you, Margaret. It means a lot to hear that. I do it because I believe in making a difference, however I can." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Mrs. Thompson, another resident, who approached with a request. "Evelyn, could you help me with my garden plot? I'm having trouble with the soil." Evelyn smiled warmly. "Of course, Mrs. Thompson. I'll be right over." As Evelyn walked away to assist Mrs. Thompson, Margaret remained in the garden, reflecting on the depth of Evelyn's dedication. It was clear that Evelyn's commitment extended beyond her role as a caregiver. She genuinely cared about every aspect of the residents' lives, creating an environment of kindness and support. Later that day, Evelyn returned to the common room, her hands covered in soil, but her spirit undiminished. Margaret, seated by the window with a book, looked up and saw Evelyn's tired but content expression. "You've been busy," Margaret remarked, her tone appreciative. Evelyn nodded, a hint of weariness in her eyes. "It's been a full day, but it's worth it. There's a lot to be done, and seeing the results makes it all worthwhile." Margaret smiled, feeling a surge of admiration for her friend. "You know, Evelyn, I've been thinking about how to best support your efforts here. Perhaps there's a way I can contribute beyond just the financial aspect." Evelyn looked at her curiously. "What do you have in mind?" "I've been considering organizing a few community events," Margaret suggested. "Something that brings the residents together, highlights the work you do, and fosters a sense of unity." Evelyn's eyes brightened at the idea. "That sounds wonderful, Margaret. I think it would be a great way to build connections and show appreciation for everyone's contributions." As they discussed potential events, ideas flowed freely. They talked about garden parties, art exhibitions, and storytelling sessions. Each idea designed to celebrate the residents' talents and foster a sense of community. By the end of their conversation, Margaret and Evelyn had mapped out a plan for the first event, a garden party to showcase the recent improvements and celebrate the vibrant spirit of Rosewood. They decided to involve the residents in the preparations, allowing them to share their skills and passions. As Margaret prepared for the upcoming event, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was eager to contribute to the community in meaningful ways, not just through financial support, but by actively participating in the life of Rosewood. The preparations for the garden party began in earnest, with residents pitching in to help set up decorations, prepare refreshments, and organize activities. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement and anticipation, a reflection of the collective effort and enthusiasm that marked the days leading up to the event. Margaret watched with satisfaction as the community came together, united by a shared sense of purpose and celebration. The garden party was more than just an event. It was a testament to the strength and resilience of the Rosewood family and the impact of Evelyn's unwavering dedication. As the day of the party approached, Margaret felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She knew that her decision, though initially met with skepticism, was beginning to take on new meaning through the collective efforts of the community. Her legacy was not just about financial contributions, but about fostering connections, supporting each other, and creating lasting memories. In the heart of Rosewood, amidst the blooms and the laughter, Margaret found solace and joy, knowing that her choices were making a difference, and that her time at Rosewood was marked by more than just her decision. It was marked by the love and unity she had helped to nurture. The day of the garden party arrived with clear skies and a gentle breeze, perfect for the occasion. Rosewood Retirement Home's garden, meticulously prepared over the past few weeks, now boasted vibrant flowers, neatly arranged tables, and strings of twinkling lights that added a touch of whimsy to the setting. The anticipation in the air was palpable as residents and staff bustled about, putting the final touches on the event. Margaret Lawson stood by the main entrance, her heart swelling with pride and excitement. She wore a light blue dress that complemented the day's festive atmosphere. Her efforts over the past few weeks had paid off, and she was eager to see the fruits of their collective labor come to life. Evelyn Harper, dressed in a cheerful floral dress, moved through the garden with purpose, overseeing the arrangements and greeting the residents as they arrived. Her face was alight with the joy of seeing the community come together. She spotted Margaret and walked over with a bright smile. "It looks amazing, Margaret," Evelyn said, taking in the beautifully decorated garden. "You've done a wonderful job organizing this." Margaret returned the smile, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Thank you, Evelyn. It's been a team effort, and I couldn't have done it without everyone's support. I'm so glad to see it all coming together." As the first guests began to arrive, the garden came alive with a buzz of conversation and laughter. Residents, dressed in their Sunday best, mingled with staff members and family visitors. The tables were laden with an array of refreshments, from delicate pastries to savory finger foods, each one a testament to the collective effort that had gone into the party. Margaret watched as Evelyn moved through the crowd, ensuring that everyone was well taken care of. Evelyn's natural ability to connect with people was evident as she engaged in conversations, sharing stories, and making sure that every guest felt welcome. The garden party featured several activities designed to celebrate the residents' talents and interests. There was a table set up for painting, where residents could create their own artwork, and another for storytelling, where they could share personal anecdotes or fictional tales. A small stage was prepared for musical performances, showcasing the diverse talents within the community. Margaret decided to take part in the storytelling session, feeling that it was a fitting way to contribute. She gathered with a small group of residents around the storytelling table, where she began sharing a story from her past, a memory of a summer evening spent with friends, filled with laughter and adventure. As Margaret spoke, she noticed the expressions of joy and nostalgia on the faces of her listeners. It was clear that her story resonated with them, sparking memories of their own experiences. The sharing of stories created a sense of camaraderie, weaving a tapestry of shared history and personal connection. The highlight of the afternoon came when Evelyn took the stage for a surprise performance. With her guitar in hand, Evelyn began to play a gentle melody, her voice filling the garden with warmth and emotion. The crowd listened intently, captivated by the beauty of the music and the sincerity of Evelyn's performance. Margaret felt a deep sense of fulfillment as she watched Evelyn perform, knowing that this moment was a reflection of the community's spirit and the impact of their collective efforts. The garden party had become more than just a celebration. It was a testament to the power of coming together and creating something meaningful. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the garden, Margaret took a moment to reflect on the day. The garden party had been a success, and the joy and connection it had fostered were evident in the smiles and laughter that filled the air. Evelyn joined Margaret by the edge of the garden, her face radiant with satisfaction. "Thank you for making this possible, Margaret. Today was truly special." Margaret smiled, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "Thank you, Evelyn. I couldn't have done it without your support and dedication." This party is a reflection of everything that's wonderful about Rosewood. As the evening drew to a close, Margaret felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose. The garden party had brought the community closer together, celebrating their shared experiences and the bonds that united them. It was a fitting reminder of the positive impact that kindness and generosity could have on the world. Margaret returned to her room that night with a heart full of gratitude. She knew that her legacy at Rosewood was being shaped not just by her financial contributions, but by the connections she had helped foster and the joy she had shared with others. As she drifted off to sleep, Margaret felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that her efforts had made a difference and that her time at Rosewood had been marked by moments of genuine connection and celebration. The days following the garden party were filled with a sense of renewal and community at Rosewood Retirement Home. The event had left a lasting impression on everyone, strengthening bonds and fostering a deeper sense of belonging among the residents and staff. Margaret Lawson continued to savor the joy of this successful celebration, feeling a renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment in her role within the community. One morning, as Margaret was enjoying her breakfast in the dining room, Thomas and Anna Lawson arrived for another visit. Their previous encounter had been emotionally charged, but this time they seemed more composed and open to a different kind of dialogue. Margaret greeted them warmly, her heart hopeful for a more positive exchange. "Good morning, Mother," Thomas said, his tone more measured than before. "We wanted to thank you for the invitation to the garden party. It was truly something special." Anna nodded in agreement, her eyes reflecting a genuine appreciation. It was clear how much effort went into making it a memorable event. "We were really touched by the way the community came together." Margaret smiled, pleased to see this new approach from her children. "I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was important to me that everyone felt connected and celebrated. It's been a wonderful way to see the community's spirit in action." As they settled into their seats, Thomas glanced around the room, taking in the vibrant atmosphere and the interaction between residents and staff. "You've done a remarkable job, Mother. I didn't fully appreciate what you've accomplished here until now." Anna added, "We've seen how much this place means to you, and it's clear that Evelyn has been an integral part of that experience." Margaret nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest. "Evelyn has been a tremendous support. She's created an environment that feels like home, and I wanted to honor that in the best way I could." The conversation shifted to more personal reflections. Thomas spoke of the pressures of work and family life, and Anna shared her own challenges in balancing her career with personal responsibilities. It was evident that both had been reflecting on their own lives and the ways they had been affected by their mother's decisions. "Mother," Thomas said after a pause, "I think we've been so focused on the financial aspect of your decision that we missed the bigger picture. Seeing the community come together made us realize how much more you've given than just money." Anna agreed, her voice softening. "It's about the connections you've fostered and the impact you've had on people's lives. We hadn't fully grasped that until now." Margaret listened, touched by their newfound understanding. "Thank you both. It means a lot to hear that. I've always believed that the true value of a legacy lies in the lives we touch and the love we share." Their conversation continued, moving through shared memories and future plans. Margaret felt a deep sense of reconciliation as she listened to her children express their evolving perspectives. It was clear that they were beginning to see the value of her choices beyond the financial realm, recognizing the impact she had made on the community. As the visit came to a close, Thomas and Anna stood to leave, their expressions reflecting a newfound respect and understanding. "We'll support your decision, Mother," Thomas said earnestly, "and we'll work to be more present in your life." Anna added, "Thank you for your patience and for showing us what truly matters. We're grateful for the chance to understand things from your perspective." Margaret embraced them both, feeling a sense of healing and hope. "Thank you for coming today. Your support means the world to me." As Thomas and Anna left, Margaret watched them go with a heart full of gratitude. The visit had brought about a positive shift in their relationship, and she felt a renewed sense of connection with her children. In the quiet of the afternoon, Margaret reflected on the changes that had unfolded. The garden party had been more than just an event. It had been a catalyst for understanding and reconciliation. Her decision, once a source of conflict, had become a bridge to deeper connections and shared appreciation. Margaret's days at Rosewood continued with a sense of contentment and purpose. The community was thriving, and she had found a renewed sense of belonging and impact. Her legacy, shaped by her choices and the connections she had fostered, was a testament to the power of kindness and the enduring strength of human relationships. As the sun set over Rosewood, casting a warm glow across the gardens, Margaret felt a profound sense of peace. Her journey had not been without its challenges, but it had led her to a place of understanding and fulfillment, where the true value of her legacy was found in the love and connections she had nurtured. The final days of summer at Rosewood Retirement Home were marked by a gentle tranquility, a contrast to the bustling energy of the recent garden party. The garden, now fully in bloom, stood as a testament to the community's spirit and the positive change Margaret Lawson had fostered. The garden party had left an indelible mark on everyone, creating lasting memories and deepening the sense of unity among the residents and staff. Margaret Lawson, now settled into a comfortable rhythm at Rosewood, found herself reflecting on the profound changes that had taken place. The tensions with her children had eased, and the support from the community had grown stronger. Each day felt like a new chapter in a story she was proud to be a part of. One crisp morning, Margaret was sitting in the garden with Evelyn Harper, enjoying a quiet moment. The sun filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the ground. Evelyn was carefully pruning a rosebush, her movements deliberate and gentle. "You've really turned this garden into something special," Margaret said, admiring the work Evelyn had done. "It's like a piece of paradise right here at Rosewood." Evelyn smiled, her face lit up with the satisfaction of her work. "Thank you, Margaret. It's been a labor of love. I think it's important to create spaces where people feel peaceful and connected to nature." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a group of residents carrying a large hand-painted banner. The banner read, "Thank you, Margaret," in colorful letters, surrounded by illustrations of flowers and butterflies. Margaret's eyes widened with the surprise and delight. "What's this?" she asked, her voice filled with emotion. The residents gathered around, their faces beaming with joy. "We wanted to do something to show our appreciation," said Mrs. Thompson, holding up the banner. "You've made such a difference here, and we thought a small gesture of thanks was in order." Margaret was deeply touched by the gesture, her eyes moist with gratitude. "This is wonderful. Thank you all so much. It means a lot to me." As the residents presented the banner, they shared their personal stories of how Margaret's presence had impacted their lives. Some spoke of the warmth and care she had brought to the community, while others talked about the joy they had found in the activities and events she had helped organize. The atmosphere was one of celebration and reflection, a testament to the ripple effect of Margaret's decision and her efforts to create a sense of belonging at Rosewood. The connections she had fostered were evident in the heartfelt expressions of gratitude and the genuine camaraderie among the residents. Later that day, Margaret found herself alone in the garden, contemplating the significance of the day's events. She was joined by Evelyn, who had finished her work and was now taking a moment to relax. "It's been a beautiful day," Margaret said, her voice filled with contentment. "I'm overwhelmed by the kindness and appreciation from everyone. It's more than I ever expected." Evelyn nodded, her eyes reflecting a deep understanding. "You've created something truly special here, Margaret. The impact you've had on the community is immeasurable." Margaret glanced around the garden, taking in the vibrant colors and the serene atmosphere. "It's amazing to see how a decision made with good intentions can grow into something so meaningful. The connections and the sense of unity we've achieved here are beyond what I had hoped for." Evelyn placed a reassuring hand on Margaret's shoulder. "Your legacy is not just in the money you've given, but in the way you've brought people together and enriched their lives. That's the true measure of your impact." As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the garden, Margaret and Evelyn sat in comfortable silence, savoring the peaceful moment. The day had been a reminder of the power of kindness and the far-reaching effects of one person's decisions. The following weeks continued to be filled with joy and connection. The residents of Rosewood, inspired by Margaret's example, began to take a more active role in organizing events and supporting one another. The sense of community that had been fostered was now a living, breathing part of daily life at Rosewood. Margaret's health, however, was beginning to decline. Despite her efforts to stay active and engaged, she knew that her time at Rosewood was drawing to a close. Her focus shifted to ensuring that the community would continue to thrive even after she was gone. In her final days, Margaret spent her time with Evelyn and the residents, sharing her thoughts and hopes for the future. She took comfort in knowing that the legacy she had created was one of love, connection, and community. On a crisp autumn morning, with the garden in full bloom and the air filled with the promise of new beginnings, Margaret passed away peacefully in her sleep. Her departure was a quiet one, marked by a profound sense of fulfillment and peace. At her memorial service, the residents and staff gathered to celebrate her life and the impact she had made. They shared stories of her kindness and the ways she had enriched their lives. The garden, which had been a symbol of her legacy, was filled with flowers and candles, a tribute to the woman who had brought so much light and warmth to their lives. As the sun set on the day of Margaret's memorial, the garden stood as a lasting testament to her impact. The ripple effect of her decisions had created a legacy of connection and compassion that would continue to flourish at Rosewood for years to come. Margaret's spirit lived on in the hearts of those she had touched, and her legacy remained a beacon of hope and love for the community she had cherished.